We are here. This is officially the first pre-fight breakdown to prep for the fight and to get everything ready for the prediction that's going to come later in the month. And so this is a vid on how Terence Crawford deals with pressure. It's going to be a part 2 because there's 2 different kinds of pressure that I think Errol Spence might elicit. And so this one's going to be walk down pressure, walking in the range, and then the other one's going to be blitzing. And so no, there's no perfect opponent to match up to Spence except for Spence, right? So that basically means that you have to find some of the closest patterns in recent fights that you can to try and get an idea of how those patterns are going to show up in the actual fight. So let's get straight into it. So with walk down pressure, Terence is going to be jabbing, probing, and circling a lot. And also in the first few rounds, like how he normally does in most fights, he's trying to time the opponent's attacks, and particularly for pressure fighter, he's trying to time their entries. So when they enter into range and they try and explode into range with an attack. So right there, he tried to time his entry with a jab to the body, basically disable his rhythm, make it hard for him to step into range. This is a pre-fight study. We're covering issues and success, and he has some issues with Avanesyan timing him and landing big shots on him, not just in the early rounds, especially in the early rounds, like rounds 1 through 4, but later on as well. One thing Crawford repeated was using frames to block and avoid the entries of Avanesyan. It'll be interesting to see how that shows up on the 29th. Basically, he's using his elbows, his forearms, his shoulders, his hand as ways to either hold Avanesyan in place so he can get around him, or push Avanesyan back to control the range, or block Avanesyan from making an entry into range. That's basically what those frames are accomplishing. So going back to the probes do a few things. They keep the range that Crawford wants. They block the vision sometimes. They occupy the guard, but it's particularly when they occupy the guard, they're the setup for a lot of his combos. So he can throw hooks around, uppercuts to the middle, straights to the body. That particular example is about controlling range. Since Crawford is primarily going to want to fight on the outside or in mid-range, he has to find ways to escape from situations where he's forced to fight in tighter mid-range or on the inside. And one of the ways he does that is with lateral movement. So here's a compilation of him laterally escaping to circle out to better places and better angles. In this particular example, he uses a frame to help him escape. Here again, he uses a frame to help him escape. One of the issues he ran into is that he was susceptible to getting landed on and getting into exchanges while he was against the ropes. In the video with Errol Spence, where I was breaking down his fight with Kell Brook, there was a moment where Errol Spence grabbed Kell Brook's waist and then like turned him against the ropes. Here you see the opposite. It's all about positional awareness and like knowing where you want the fight to be. So after he clinches him, he turns Avanesyan towards the ropes. So that way, when the ref breaks him up, he's back in the center of the ring, which is where you want to be so that you're not getting cornered against the ropes anymore. He also used the frames to push off and keep distance. That type of stuff will be particularly important for avoiding inside fights for Crawford, which I think he would probably want to do if he's facing Spence. One of the big reasons this is a two-parter is because I feel like with a walk down style of pressure, he's going to stand in front of the opponent more, which leaves a lot more openness for exchanges and shots to land. I think that's one of the big reasons why Avanesian was landing some big shots on him. And so when he's standing in front of him, it's more opportunities to land clean shots. And he seems to stand in front of an opponent that's not going to make him move too much, right? So that's something to think about. One issue with the framing he does is that sometimes, at least on the inside especially, he is leaving some openness to get caught. And I'm gonna look more at the inside game for Crawford later on, because that's gonna be very important. But basically, this is the first part. Errol Spence will come tomorrow, and that's gonna be over lateral movement, how Errol Spence deals with lateral movement, and we're just gonna keep pushing it out. Immortality Serum out.
How can I die if I'm immortal? Monster in my eyes, I'm immoral. I ain't got no time to be cordial. Ripping up shit, I'm making big decisions. I'm feeling fire and important. Lightning striking and torching all of my brow.